great leaders don't create followers, they create more leaders. Seeing leadership abilities in others and nurturing and mentoring and empowering them, all of a sudden, this bottleneck that we had in our business started to widen. And what we did is we allowed other leaders to step up into leadership roles, and we were able to scale our business at that point. And so we went from about 3 million to 12 million over a period of a few years. In some of the roles that I played in the Entrepreneurs Organization, eventually becoming chairman of the board, it was a shift in mindset from positional authority to relational authority. Because in the Entrepreneurs Organization, you've got very successful business leaders from around the world that are volunteering to be in leadership roles. And so, I don't have positional authority. I can't tell people what to do.
Hi, I'm Zorina Dimitrova, and welcome to the Grow and Learn podcast. Here I host thought leaders on business growth, transformation, leadership, and succeeding in life and business with a human focus. At Grow and Learn, we are the only ones offering uniquely customized solutions to business needs using a cutting-edge AI business growth assessment tool and a global network of top-tier experts to craft and execute strategies that drive impactful results. If you're ready to grow smarter, book a call today at grownlearn.org and let's transform your business together. Enjoy this episode. This is going to be an aggressively average content, quoting one of the crypto people that I'm listening to. But seriously, the person that I'm going to present to you today is fascinating. He has plenty of experience, personal and in building corporations. He sits on the board of a variety of organizations. One of them, I don't want to chop this. So he's the global chairman of Entrepreneurs Organization Board of Directors. He is also a facilitator of Entrepreneurs Organization, prestigious entrepreneurial master's program at MIT. He's built and exited 2 companies. He's grown them into the millions, and now they're 500 Inc. companies. I'm welcoming Brian Brault. Hi, Brian.
Hello, Zarina, how are you?
Thank you. How are you?
I'm awesome.
How's the weather up between New York and Toronto?
It is cold. It is also snowing today, but it's a beautiful snow. It's just large clusters of snowflakes falling gently to the ground. It's just kind of moving back and forth as it floats around. It's a beautiful day.
What an average way to start a podcast.
That's right.
Fantastic. Brian, we briefly chatted before we started talking, and you've traveled to, you mentioned 67 countries. You're on top of your leadership game. You're a sought after consultant on leadership, and you're also leading relationship retreats. What do these things have to do? What do they have in common?
Real quick. So I would never say I'm on the top of my leadership game. I think leadership is a journey. And so I think the leader that says, hey, I've arrived and I'm really a great leader, probably has a lot further to go to be a great leader. So I view myself as on a journey, and where I think I might be today is a fraction of where I hope to be 20 or 30 years from now. So let me just start with that, because that's important to me. And at some point, maybe we'll chat about the fact that it was only about 9 years ago that I still didn't really understand how I was being evolved into leadership roles within the Entrepreneurs Organization, which is, close to 20,000 members worldwide right now. But I just didn't see myself as a leader that others saw. And there was a transformational moment for me that I started to maybe see things differently. And I believe it's a transformation that's happened worldwide around how the world views leaders and who is becoming leaders today. But to answer your question, really, I'm at a point in my life now where I'm building more of a purpose-driven business, because I think there's something that the world needs now in terms of leadership. And so what we try to do is curate transformative experiences for people to really understand what the world needs now in terms of leadership and how we need to show up as leaders. But what I've learned is my wife is a certified Gottman relationship leader. And so she works with couples to help them be better versions of themselves. And as we've put on couples retreats around the world, I've started to realize that a lot of what she helps couples achieve and the process she uses to help them achieve a better relationship are really at its core the same skills and mindset needed to be a great leader building high performing teams in a business setting. And so, and what I realized during that was that a relationship is just, it is a high performing, well, the goal is to have a high performing relationship, a high performing team. It's just a smaller version of a team. And so really it's human beings showing up as individuals and then interacting and connecting with each other. And so it's really, it comes down to the same attributes of how you show up. And so and then we just take that further and say there's many roles in our life that we then serve the community. We volunteer on non-for-profit boards or help organizations become better and leading in those aspects. Really, it's about leading teams.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of talk recently about leadership with authenticity, with humility, and you're talking about these things as well. But one of your professional achievements was that you brought a company to 12 million of sales. Forgive me if I'm misquoting, purely based on relationships without using Salesforce. So at this time, when you managed this, what was your realization about leadership? Was this the time when you kind of got it, like it occurred to you that there's something more to leadership?
Uh,
Then-
you mentioned a few things there that I think are fascinating, and one of the things you mentioned is authentic leadership. And so, for me, authentic leadership is really being true to yourself as to who you are. And so, I usually couple that thought leadership with servant leadership or servant minded. Or depending on the culture I'm talking with, it might be leading with a mindset of serving others. And so it's I think, back a little bit to what I started to talk about not recognizing my own leadership ability. It was really that the Bill George is the CEO and now a professor at Harvard Business School teaching leadership, wrote a book called Discover Your True North. And it was in reading that at 52 years old was the first time that I ever started to understand maybe why I had evolved in leadership roles. And let me explain why. Bill George asserts that the era of Jack Welch and GE style leadership, where the smartest person in the room evolves to be the leader, has shifted. And that now it's really the person with higher emotional intelligence. I mean, you need to be intelligent anyway, but it's the EQ, it's the emotional intelligence, people who genuinely care about the people they're leading, genuinely care about them, and also who are good at building teams. Those are the people that are really evolving into leadership roles today. And that felt more authentic to me. So with that, I'm going to come back and answer your question. And that is when I was growing my first real business and we grew to 12 million in sales, there came a point, Zarina, where the company was much smaller, but it had achieved what I had dreamed of building. And so all of a sudden it was a substantial company, but all of a sudden I went from building a company to running a company. And I love building companies. I'm not really great at running them. I say that. I don't love running a business as much as I do building a business. I'm more of a visionary entrepreneur.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden I came to build exactly what I wanted to, but didn't love what I was doing anymore. And what I realized is that I had amazing people on my team. And so what we did is kind of restructured our business a little bit. So we had we have five different functions within our business, different product lines of sorts that we served in a property management and maintenance business. And we also we were geographically dispersed as well. We were based in New York State. We served New York State, Ohio, and Pennsylvania in the northeast part of the United States. But we also had a division in the southeastern part of the United States, in Florida and in the southern states. And so what we did is we divided that company into six different businesses, and we elevated each of the leaders of those businesses to almost be like entrepreneurs of their own. So we provided administrative support, human resource support, and accounting support. And then there was an overarching leadership team. But all those businesses basically were allowed to and supported and empowered to run by themselves. And so what I learned in that, although I didn't really recognize it till much later, is that great leaders don't create followers; they create more leaders. So recognizing that by seeing leadership abilities in others and nurturing and mentoring and empowering them, all of a sudden, this bottleneck that we had in our business started to widen. And what we did is we allowed other leaders to step up into leadership roles, and we were able to scale our business at that point. And so we went from about 3 million to 12 million over a period of a few years, but we did it really well because it wasn't like one business growing that fast. It was like six businesses growing that fast. And then I was able to go in and help build each of those businesses, which is what gives me energy. So it was a wonderful, wonderful opportunity. But taking that further in some of the roles that I played in the entrepreneurs organization, eventually becoming chairman of the board, was that it was a shift in mindset from positional authority to relational authority. Because in the entrepreneurs organization, you've got very successful business leaders from around the world that are volunteering to be in leadership roles. And so, I don't have positional authority. I can't tell people what to do. They're very strong leaders in their own right. And so what I learned is that I needed to be able to shift from positional authority, where you lead with directives telling people what to do, to leading with relational authority. And it's relational authority we lead through influence, or we lead through collaboration. And it's really about engaging others and valuing their opinions and soliciting their input and perspectives so that we can make better decisions. And what was fascinating is when you can shift from positional authority, which is how most people lead in their businesses, to leading with relational authority, which is, again, influence and collaboration, and you learn how to do that well, that actually applies in every other aspect of your life, that applies in your organization. And so what I realized I had done without recognizing it is I shifted to, in my business, when we divided it up into six different business groups, I had shifted to relational authority, where I was leading with collaboration and influence rather than telling people what to do, because I had empowered them to make those decisions. And it was just a wonderful journey for me to see in real life, without recognizing what was happening, that shift and how we were able to really scale.
Would you say that this success of relational authority or relational leadership was more due to the fact that the environment was more susceptible to this type of leadership rather than a different type of environment, let's say a law firm or a big four consulting firm won't be, they have a quite top down, or a bank, they have a quite authoritative style, generally speaking. Or do
that's a tough one for me, because I tend to feel that a a relational authority and leading with people rather than telling them what to do or doing their job for them there's always a place for that, regardless of the organization. There are certain environments, it could be manufacturing, it could be construction sites where there's a number of teams that need to be able to all be in sync in order to work effectively, that someone needs to lead with positional authority so they can give directions on what needs to happen. So there are environments where I would never say it should be all one way or the other, because there's situational leadership that requires you to show up a little differently. If there's a fire in the building,
Mm.
you don't want to sit and bring everyone together and decide, hey, how do you think we should handle this? Someone needs to step in with authority and start giving direction of what to do. There are crises sometimes that requires very quick decisions that require more leading through directives, telling people what to do. However, when there is the opportunity to engage people's perspectives and collaborate, I think regardless of the environment, that is the better way to lead.
Mhm.
That's my own perspective.
Yeah, sure. And you mentioned there are tremendous parallels between managing your relationship and being an effective leader with relationship authority. How does this translate in a relationship? In a relationship.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So it's one of one of the things that I have found is I have a way of communicating things. And so I feel passionate about the way messages can be delivered. And very often in some of the companies that I coach, probably the most common thing that people will come to me for outside of our normal meeting structure is, hey, I have to deliver this message to someone. Can you help me think through the best way to do that? So I feel on some level like I can communicate well. Uh, uh, my wife does not get excited when I tell her how I think she should say something.
Mhm.
Um, Now, if I say, hey, if you had said it this way, it might have been received differently. And that could be how I received it or how she's delivering another message. And so I realized that I'm telling her what she should do. And my wife is an incredibly intelligent person and extremely capable. She doesn't need me to tell her what to do. So we've been married over 37 years. So at this point, she knows who I am and she knows what I find my faults. And so she usually laughs when I tell her how she might want to say something or tell her what to do. But my point is, um, we're a team. We're a team, and so we've each played different roles in our life and in our families, and so we're both leaders in our families and we're both leaders in our relationship. And so for us to have a marriage that has lasted over 37 years and hopefully will last another 37 years is we're a team. And so I need to embrace her perspective, and if there's something that I'd like to do, rather than direct that's what we're going to do, is maybe influence what we're going to do and allow her to influence as well, and that we collaborate on decisions versus versus me making the decision for sure, or her making the decisions. There are times when you can't necessarily collaborate on everything. So there's certain decisions that she defers to me for, and there's certain decisions I defer to her for. And those are kind of understood. And certain decisions, I just don't need any input on. She's going to make a better decision than I'm going to make. Um, we spend a month a year living in a foreign country, and so when we decide what Airbnb or VRBO we're going to stay at for a month, I would spend about 15 minutes. Looks nice, fits our budget. I love the views. The kitchen's nice. I love to have a nice kitchen. Um, and I'll decide in 15 minutes. And I will not have taken the time to look in deeper into other things. Where my wife will do a lot of research and read the reviews of other people who have stayed there, and she makes a much better decision. So when I booked a place in the south of France in July for a month and had no air conditioning, and really not the view I thought we had, at that point we decided that from this point forward she would make all those decisions because her choices are always better.
Yeah. But you've been, you've been studying your characters and aligning for 37 years. When you're in an environment with relatively new people or people you don't know so well, people that you're now leading with relationship authority, how do you mentioned the word influence. When does influence, how do we separate influence from manipulation or coercion, like a subversive coercion, when it's like done in a slightly manipulative way? How do you make sure that you're not doing that, and that you have the stronghold of character to keep yourself on track of being also of having humility when relating to others?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's I'll answer it the best way I can. What I try to do, and I try to encourage others to do, like if I'm coaching a leadership team and the founder or the CEO is going into a situation, I'll say, hey, listen, if you already are leaning towards a certain way, you may just want to be authentic with that up front and say, hey, listen, this is the way I'm leaning, but I also understand that there's some other perspectives. And so even if we end up going with what I feel inclined to do, I want to go in with my eyes open, or I want us to go in having had this conversation so we are best prepared for that. Or I'm inclined towards this certain approach, but I haven't fully decided yet, and I'd really like some perspectives from everyone ahead of time. So if you are leaning a certain way, just be authentic with that. But be very genuine in your desire to have other perspectives, so that you're open to changing your mind, or you want to go in being best prepared for whatever path forward you decide to go on. There are also times when you just don't know, and that's okay. And maybe what the decision you're making is not a critical decision, and not knowing is okay. Then there are times when your team may expect you to kind of have an idea, and that's when it takes courage to be vulnerable. And that's, to me, when teams can actually start to transform a little differently. And it was the second company that I built was a company that serviced the hospitality industry, the hotel industry, and it was we had a brand standard with Hyatt Hotels, which means all the hotels in the Americas, in Canada, the United States, the Latin American, Caribbean, all the America hotels were required to have our program as part of their hotel. And that was in 2010. And then in 2013, there was a change in the highest level of leadership at Hyatt, and there was a decision made to downgrade us from a requirement to a recommendation. And so we knew that we would potentially lose about 30% of our revenue at that point. And we were very nervous. And so we brought everyone from around the country into a meeting. And I remember I had prayed for the right words to say, prayed for an answer. And we started that meeting. It was in my office, and we were sitting around a table. And I was kind of looking down, waiting for the right words. And I finally looked up and looked at everyone and said, hey, we all know why we're here. And I wish I had the answer, but I don't. And the eyes got really big. And I said, but what I do believe is that the answer is in this room. We just need to figure it out. And then their eyes got really big because they felt, I'm thinking in my head, they're feeling like I'm putting this on them. what felt like 20 minutes was probably 20 seconds. And then someone finally said, well, what if we tried this? And that led to a conversation. And 2 hours later, we had a plan. It probably wasn't perfect, but it was a plan. And as everyone was walking out, one of our leadership team members stayed behind, and she came over to me and said, "Thank you." And I said, "For what?" She said, "I've never seen you be as strong of a leader as you were today." And I felt the exact opposite. I felt like I had failed because I didn't have the answers. And I said, "Wow, why do you say that?" And she said, "Because you admitted that you didn't have the answers, but you also encouraged and allowed us to step in and help be the solution." And she said, "And I feel like we've got a really good plan." And what that told me was, one is I don't have to have all the answers. And there's this mindset that, as leaders, don't let them see you sweat. Well, the reality is the people you lead know you're sweating. They know you're sweating before you do. And so when you say, "Hey, I don't have the answers," or "I'm nervous," or "I think I've made a mistake," what you're telling them is it's okay that we succeed together and we fail together, and that you need others' help. And I think that really, for me, has helped me understand that being, vulnerability based trust is a really important part of building a team.
It's a very interesting story, and I was really engulfed and following, and I could understand how this works very well. I think I may have participated in similar situations. So yes, I totally get how this works. Tell us a bit about the retreats that you're doing with your wife. How do you facilitate the couples to become authentic with each other and to have a better
Yeah.
relationship? What's the
Yeah.
process?
Well, I mean, there's a couple things that are very, very purposeful, and that is, one is we're in a setting where you're out away from the day-to-day challenges of life. When we're at the Dude Ranch out in the Rocky Mountains, you have to be in a very specific spot in that property to get cell phone service or Wi-Fi service. So when you're not in that particular spot, which is in the main lodge, you're disconnected, but you're disconnected from the rest of the world so that you can be better connected with yourself and better connected with each other. So that's a very important part of that. Our retreats in other parts of the world, like we just did one in Tuscany, we're doing one in Santorini, Greece, coming up. Those are well coming up in September, but we're very specific in how we curate that experience. We start out with focusing on you as an individual, because in any relationship in life, you first start out as an individual. So in a romantic relationship, a marriage, a family, in a business setting, in friendships, you are first an individual. So understanding who you are at your core and what makes you who you are, and then sharing that with your partner, allow and we do a personality assessment. We use Clifton Strength Finders, and what that does is we try to help create an understanding of you and your entirety of your life, and why you are kind of the way you are. But then we put some science behind it with assessments, and you start to understand yourself, why you show up the way you do, but your partner does as well. And then all of a sudden it becomes less personal. So those little nuances in your romantic relationship that you don't love about your partner sometimes, you start to understand, hey, listen, this isn't them trying to be difficult. This is just who they are. And that they're wired this way. And it starts when you can see is, hey, there's an assessment that is explained exactly how they are, and there's thousands of other people who are similar. You start to take it less personal and understand, okay, let me embrace this and work on this with them. So who are you as an individual? And then we focus on who are you as a couple. So kind of understanding your history together, your love map, which is what is the journey you've been on prior to connecting with each other, and then since you've been together, what are things that are important to you, what makes up who you are as an individual and a couple. is all part of that. And then we talk a lot about communication, a lot about communication, how to communicate better, how to listen differently. So many human beings listen to fix or listen to reply. So what we really work on is helping people to listen to understand, which changes everything. When you're listening to understand the other person rather than just simply waiting for them to stop so that you can tell them what you think they should do or tell them your opinion, you're listening to understand them. And it's very different. We also talk about how to navigate conflict. Conflict is actually a good thing. I can remember the first time that my wife said to me that when she's talking to a couple and they say they never argue or never have disagreements, that's actually more of a red flag for her than anything. And I said, really, tell me about that because I don't know that I agree with that. And she said, well, think about it. She said, when you and I have a disagreement or an argument, what is it that you think, what is it that you want from me? And we had a lengthy conversation, but what it came down to is I said, well, really what I want is I don't think you understand me and I want you to understand me. And she said, okay, and what is it you think I want? Meaning her. And it was a much shorter conversation at that point. I said, I think you probably want to be understood as well. She said, great. So if we can figure out how to safely navigate conflict, the other side of that is you understand me better and I understand you better. And that's really what the journey of a strong relationship needs, is to constantly be on a journey of understanding each other a little bit more, seeing each other. And so just learning how to navigate conflict in a healthy way. In other words, when you have conflict, how do you redirect it so that maybe it has a positive outcome? Or once you've had that conflict, how do you recover from that in a healthy way? And so those are some of the things that we talk about, and it's really transformational. And we do it in a way where we have 2 or 3 hours of content. Then we go out and explore the world. If we're in Tuscany, we may do a cooking class. We may ride bikes, electric bikes through the countryside. We may do a wine tasting or something, or an olive oil tasting. If we're out at the Dude Ranch, we may go horseback riding or mountain biking or hiking or walking or just sit in the hot tub. So and then we come together with smaller groups and dig into some of those things a little bit more. So.
Mm-hmm. Interesting process. You mentioned Wired, and this is what I actually also wanted to ask you. I'm gonna weave in back to the topic of leadership of organizations. My question that I didn't get to ask because we transitioned to a different topic was, to what extent is this already wired, like in not only inbuilt, but also through experience built in somebody's life, and it's a part of their character rather than something that they can immediately absorb and learn as a practice, how to communicate properly, how to relate to others, because this is a much deeper skill, I feel, how to relate to others. It's not simply, I need to observe this. It's like it requires practice. It requires life to, yeah.
Well, that's
the same I would assume applies to the couples retreats. I wouldn't call them therapy, but re-education.
Yeah, it's not therapy, and it's also, I would say 80 to 90% of the couples that come to our retreat have good relationships. They're just looking to invest in it further and elevate it. Then we get couples that are struggling, and we help them. We help provide the tools and the environment for them to connect and understand each other a little bit better. So it all works out. There are people who, boy, that's kind of the question: are leaders born or are they made? And I think I think they're made. And let me tell you what I mean by that is in some ways leaders are made through reading books, being mentored, being trained. Okay, that's more the intellectual journey. But then there's also leaders are made because of their life experiences, I think. And so, and that's why there's all different styles of leadership. What I tend to focus on is really more the emotional journey of leadership. There's all sorts of incredible books out there of reading of how to get things done, how to better manage your time, how to have fierce conversations or crucial conversations, or challenging conversations. There's all sorts of wonderful material out there. For me, Zarina, it's really about um, understanding that we lead human beings. And when we lead a human being, um, it's a matter of understanding the emotional journey, the life journey that they have had that defines who they are. And so, I've lived for 61 years. I've had incredible experiences, both from my upbringing, my relationship with my parents, losing my mom 36 years ago, my dad remarrying, me being in a marriage for 37 and a half years, raising three who are now adult children, some of which have been on a clear path, where others, just a really circuitous path that has gone through some really difficult times, and has arrived at a pretty great place right now. But anyways, there's all sorts of things. You and I could sit and talk about our lives, and we could certainly find common themes. But then there's so much about our lives that would be so drastically different. And some of the things you might share with me would be amazing things that maybe you've shared on social media. And then there's other things that maybe you don't even really want to share because they were scary or hurtful or shameful. And so when I'm sitting with you and we work together, if there's something difficult that I need to have a conversation with you about, we absolutely are going to have that conversation. And I might say to you, hey, Zarina, I need to talk to you about this issue because we need to fix this and we need to redirect this. However, this isn't like you. You're usually very good. You're always proactive. You're always meeting your deadlines, you're meeting your commitments, and we're behind on this, or we've disappointed this customer. Are you okay? Is everything going on okay in your life? Because this isn't like you. And if there's something going on that maybe we need to bring in some other people to help, we'll do that. But it's really recognizing the humanity in the people that we lead. And what I try to tell people is this: a leader needs to make sure that the people they're leading understand and can answer these three questions. Where are we going? What do we need to do to get there? And what is my role? Where are we going is that clearly articulated vision, very clearly articulated, of exactly what does success look like a year, 2 years, 3 years from now. And then what do we need to do to get there is that strategic plan, which is a broader group of people that are going to ideate and strategize around what we need to do to accomplish and reach that vision. And then understanding what is my role. So everyone in the organization, from the founder or the CEO to the person who was just hired yesterday, understand what their role is on executing on that plan to reach that vision. Then my own belief is the leader then needs to circle down to the bottom of the organization and understand that their role is to serve those people, to help them be successful in executing on that strategy and reaching that vision. And serving could be providing budget, could be providing direction. It could be being able to listen to them when they need to talk. It could be buying them lunch or going and doing an errand for them so that they can stay focused on meeting a deadline. It could be affirming them. It could be holding them accountable, and everything in between, but serving them to help them be successful in achieving the desired outcome. And so that's kind of how I look at it, is shifting your mindset about the humanity of the people you leave and serving them to be successful. And part of serving is holding accountable. But you can really only hold people accountable when you've been very clear on where we're going and what we need to do to get there.
Thank you. This was a very well-encompassing conversation and answer to my question. So now the only thing left to ask you is, how can people reach you to go to Santorini with you?
Oh. So our website is called Legacy of Significance. So it's legacyofsignificance.com, and in there there's leadership development and personal development. Under the personal development tab is our couples retreats, and There's the one in the Dude Ranch. There's the one in Santorini, Greece, which is September 21st to the 26th of this year. And we are, yeah, it'll be a spectacular experience, and it's a mix of deep connection with your partner and exploring conversations and material to help take your relationship to the next level. But it's also really enjoying the environment that you're in and really experiencing Santorini, Greece, for all its beauty and all its glory. And then we do other shorter term retreats, but those are usually customized by who needs them. So
Yeah.
yeah, and legacyofsignificance.com is the way to reach us.
Fantastic. Brian Brault, thank you so much. I enjoyed very much this conversation. Thank you for listening to Grow and Learn. We hope that you found our podcast informative, engaging, and inspiring. Our mission is to help you keep growing and learning, and we hope that our conversations and insights have provided you with practical advice and useful perspectives. If you're looking for personalized support and guidance to help you achieve your personal or professional growth objectives, I offer a range of services to help. As a trusted management partner and mentor, I work with businesses in the process of transformation, looking for new streams of business as well as M&A. With an extensive professional network of experts and mentors, I can bring on board the right person or team based on the specific needs of the company I'm working with. To learn more about the services I offer and how I can help you achieve your goals, please visit my website at grownlearn.org. You can also reach out to me via email or social media. I'd love to hear from you. And if you enjoyed this episode of Grow and Learn, please subscribe to our podcast and leave us a review. Your feedback is important to us, and it helps us to continue to create content that is relevant and valuable to our listeners. Thanks again for listening, and we look forward to sharing more insights and perspectives with you in the future.